There we go. Welcome to Out of Continues, episode 251. A weekly podcast what's up every Monday in which we talk about video games and related topics. I am Stuff.
Man of many hand motions. I don't have those hand motions, so when you get to me, just be prepared.
I am the host Staffa, and each week we visit Zombocom. No, each week I have different guest hosts, and this week I got Jess.
Hey!
And I also have Kevin.
What's up?
How you guys doing?
Doing good.
Pretty good.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's like, I feel like school has started again for me, so I've been like not making as much content for things, and I feel like that's just my general outlook on life now. It's just like, it's good!
Oh man, school just started for you're still doing stuff. You're getting your PhD. And,
Yeah, I'm gonna get all the things.
Yep, all the things.
I'm gonna just ask them to make new clothing to add. Can I have a beret and a hood? Like a cape?
Yep. And so this week we're gonna talk about video games because it goes up on outofcontinues.com as an MP3 and it goes up on YouTube.com as a video. And this week we're going to talk about the main topic being the Armageddon / deep impact of video games. I'll go into more detail on that once we get to that. After that we got some announcements. Then we got some news. And right now we have a disclaimer. That disclaimer being, all opinions expressed on the show are of our own and not of our employers, whether past, present, or future. So, yes, don't fire. Please.
Don't. I beg of you, librarians, please don't fire me.
So, let's talk about this main topic. The Armageddon and deep impact of video games. First of all, I want to explain what the heck this whole Armageddon / deep impact thing is all about for people who don't understand. So, Armageddon and Deep Impact, there are two movies that came out like at the same time that were basically the same thing. And pretty much from what like the rumors is how this came about is like one of the writers of Armageddon told another dude about the movie that he was writing, and so that person pretty much tried to make the movie from memory, and that was Deep Impact.
He did a great job, because, I mean, everybody remembers Deep Impact. Like,
So
amazing.
yeah, so those two movies came out at the same time and were basically they were the same thing. And there are other examples of this. Like Bug's Life and Ants came out like at the same time. They weren't the exact same thing, but thematically they were similar enough.
Yeah.
And it like kind of stole some of the thunder from Bug's Life as far as like box office. There are plenty of other movies that this happened with. Like two of them came out at the same time, and they were almost the same thing, and it's wild. So, we're going to talk about video games in which two games came out like the same time, like within weeks or months or days from each other, and they're like basically the same thing, and could be a coincidence, could be not a coincidence. Those are basically the two things that could actually be.
It can be all things. Can we
So,
just, like, since we're doing it as the Armageddon Deep Impact thing, can we just call this when you can't quite afford Aerosmith?
yep.
That's really the defining factor for
Hmm.
success.
So I compiled a list of some games and put it in our notes just to help us with this discussion. If you guys have more games that you want to talk about, you know, we'll get around to them. But just to start off the discussion, I think an easy game to or easy couple of games to talk about are Quake 3 and Unreal Tournament. Like they came out, I'm pretty sure they came out like the exact same month, same year, and they are not the exact same game, but they have slightly different um, gameplay mechanics, but they're pretty much the same thing. Online arena shooters, first-person shooters that. Well, actually, yeah, they pretty much are the same game. They have the same story. Like they're taking different heroes from around the universe and they're fighting each other for fighting reasons.
Yeah. Like, it's essentially just tournament, like, deathmatch games. They're
Yes,
exactly the same quality.
and everybody knows Unreal Tournament's the better of the two. So.
Well. I was like, I was never really a big fan of it. I like the engine, but when I was forced to play it,
Forced to play at gunpoint.
it felt like it. It felt like for a grade I was forced
Please,
to play.
I don't want to play this anymore.
I was just like, I would just walk in and die. It would more just be, it felt like, it was unreal how many times I died. That's where the unreal comes from.
Oh.
Huh.
Another big example around the same time was World of Warcraft and EverQuest 2. Like they came out like the same month, but I'm pretty sure World of Warcraft was like trying to compete with EverQuest 1, which was the big MMO of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they were drawing a lot of inspiration from that, so that's probably why they were so similar to begin with.
Yeah.
Well, if you ask me, pretty much every MMO is the same thing.
That is kind of like
They like
not.
they all have their own differences to make them like mechanically a little bit different, but they all have the same underlying like formula of how you progress through the game and what types of things you do. I mean, there are very few MMOs that actually go way out of the box and do something completely different. But I think a lot of MMOs for a while wanted to, like after World of Warcraft became extremely popular and had millions of subscribers, it basically became the winner of the MMO genre.
Hmm.
And then hundreds of MMOs have been coming out since then that have basically just tried to clone the formula. I mean, they're not within the same months. Some of them are, but like even now, there are MMOs that still come out that use that same basic formula, but they change one or two aspects. Like the one that I played. Wow, I'm drawing a blank on the name now. WildStar. Like that one I played for a while, and I also played World of Warcraft for a couple of months, a long time ago. But I mean, at the very basis, they're pretty much the same thing. The differences were really in the combat and the customization. Like in WildStar, combat was a little bit more active than World of Warcraft. Like with most MMOs, it's all passive combat. You're just pushing your number keys at the right times to make sure that you can hit the attacks. And sometimes it matters whether you're facing the enemy or not. Sometimes it doesn't. But with WildStar, it was a lot more active. Each enemy had a telegraph where you could see where their attacks would be, so you had to actively dodge away from attacks. You had to actively make sure that your attacks were facing the right ways, and because you can kind of see your own telegraph as well. I think it was Guild Wars that kind of first did the whole dodging aspect in MMOs. So there's some similarities between a lot of MMOs and how they act or function on their very basis, but then at least like they have some minor differences, but most of them are the same.
Yeah, I remember for such a long time, EverQuest 1 was like the MMO, and
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
MMO was trying to copy it until World of Warcraft beat it, and then after that, every MMO was trying to copy World of Warcraft.
There can
Yeah.
be one, like the Highlander. That's how MMOs work.
But I definitely remember when I was in high school, like so many people were actually hyped for EverQuest 2. And like right before the release, there was like a few people that were like, "Oh, World of Warcraft, this is gonna be the game," and boom, it happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now
Um,
it's just NeverQuest.
ooh.
I'm here for the sick burns for like 90s games.
So another set of games that came out like pretty much at the same time, Psyops, the Mind Gate Conspiracy, which was made by Midway, I believe,
Yes.
and Second Sight, which was made by what was it? The team that made the Time Splitters games.
Yeah.
And like both of these games were like they had very much to do with like psionic powers and lifting up objects and throwing them and stuff like that. Um, Psyops being a bit more action oriented, and Second Sight being a little bit more like trippy storyline,
Yeah.
time manipulation, weirdness. Of course, that had to be time manipulation since it was the developers that made Time Splitters. So.
Like, I remember being excited for both of these games, and I got them both. And Second Sight, I don't think I even finished. Like, I got a little ways in, and I don't really remember anything except the cover, which was just this, like, bald man holding his head.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even remember if that was even that much of the game. But Psyops, I remember being quite enamored with, because it was, like, playing a bad B movie. Like, you got, like, this mind drain power, which I assume is just what school does, but it's just like you like hold people's heads, and you're Nick Scryer. Nick Scryer, and he infiltrates some terrorist organization, I think. I can't really recall what it was, but at the time, my youth, that was like.
Couldn't you like unlock a skin to play as like Scorpion or something?
You could, yeah, you could. You could play as Scorpion.
Yeah,
You didn't
like,
get any like benefits for that. I guess it just was like exciting.
yeah, that's a huge benefit. You're Scorpion.
That's true. It's one of those things like you could just say get over here every time you do like a mind drain or like telekinesis. But the thing is, it was like I guess it would also just freak people out. Like if you were about to infiltrate some organization, I would be scared of you if you just showed up as one of the Mortal Kombat characters. Like, what are you doing, man? You don't even need telekinesis. I'm already done. Like I'm already
Boom. I was the opposite of you. I didn't finish Psyops, but I did finish Second Sight. Like Psyops, either the game was too hard or it glitched out and like I couldn't progress for some reason. I can't remember why. But,
it was very glitchy.
yeah.
So.
But I did beat Second Sight, and I remember like by the end of the game, I was like, oh, I understand the story now. This is crazy. Because it had something to do with like you're a psychic that was like basically doing stuff back in time, and that would change the present, and like so by the end of the game you realize that you're making changes, and these levels are the past and those levels are the present and not the other way around.
But it wasn't like they didn't create paradoxes? Did they fix that?
I can't remember. But I do remember I do remember you were saving people in the past, and that's why they were showing up in the present. Like just popping out of nowhere. At first it made no sense to me. I was like, wait a minute, I thought that dude was dead. What's going on? But yeah. Um, let's move on. Infamous and Prototype. These two games came out like a month apart, and
Mm-hmm.
I remember so many people. It basically came down to like an Xbox versus PlayStation thing, even though Prototype was on both. Like it made
Yeah.
no sense. Like why are you making this? Why are you making Prototype the representative of Xbox when it's on both? It makes no sense. You guys are stupid. But yeah, like I think I mean even though they're both like these superhero open world games, I think that you can compare them to like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat. Infinite being the Street Fighter, more gameplay focused, and Prototype being in Mortal Kombat, more gore focused.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Prototype didn't really have the moral choices, right? As well? Or did it? I can't even. Like, you didn't have, like, with Infamous where you could be good or bad. Prototype, you were just kind of that dude. Like, it didn't really. He was kind of set.
Yeah, you're just this dude wearing a hoodie,
Who
and
Yeah.
can become. He's kind of became like a rock guy, right? Like, he just. Kind of became a thing from the Fantastic Four just randomly. I don't know.
I
Prototype
didn't
just kind
play
of
much of
happened
it.
to me, and I forgot. And then I immediately just blanked it out of my mind. I was like, "Well, that was a game," and then it just like went away.
Prototype just happened to you. Boom.
Yeah, I don't think it really caught on because they didn't. You don't really. People don't like talk about it much after
No.
like, the first game, and like Infamous is still going, and people get excited for that one whenever a new game comes out. But I'm pretty
I,
sure that if someone were to say a new Prototype coming out, people would be like, okay.
yeah, because they had a Prototype too, right? I mean, no one
Yep,
talked about it.
Yeah.
I
they
didn't even
did.
play that one.
Yeah, the guy hated computers.
Don't we all some days? Maybe I should. Did he work in an office? Is that
He also hated the dude that gave him powers. So
just like occasionally, just like, Steve, can you stop shooting rocks into the desk? I'm trying to work here. I gotta get this spreadsheet done. Prototype 2.
another couple games on my list. I put down Orcs Must Die and Dungeon Defenders. Even though they play differently, I think they look similar enough.
And they
And
kind of
they
have a similar premise. They're taking a more like hands-on, active approach to the tower defense genre,
yeah.
whereas most tower
Yeah,
defenses
and
are
they
just
both
kind of
got that
like,
kind of
yeah. But
yeah.
I played both of them, and I think out of those two, I personally liked Dungeon Defenders a lot more, just because there were, I think there was a more variety of characters to pick from, and the progression seemed a lot more thought out and well planned.
Well, like the way how I see these two games. Well, first of all, Dungeon Defenders was co-op from the get-go. Like they didn't
Yeah.
add co-op to Orcs Must Die until the sequel. But
Hmm.
as far as the first two games, first games for these two games, Orcs Must Die was more about like the combat and the placement of the different traps that you get, and Dungeon Defenders was more like loot driven
Yeah.
and character progression.
Yeah.
So
It's actually
uh,
why I liked Orcs more, since it was more combat strategy.
yeah, I
Mhm.
preferred Orcs as well. I
Because
try
Dungeon
to
felt grindy.
yeah, like I went to Orcs first and then Dungeon Defenders, and when I went to Dungeon Defenders second, like it just felt the combat was not as fun to me, though it did have the character progression which Orcs Must Die didn't have at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually was the other way around because I had played Dungeon Defenders first, and I played that with people, uh, pretty much like from the first day. I don't think I ever played Dungeon Defenders on my own. And
Mhm.
then Orcs Must Die, I kind of missed the whole cooperative aspect of it. And I played a few rounds, and I mean the combat was much more fluid, I think, than Dungeon Defenders. I definitely agree with that. But
Yeah.
it kind of felt a little boring after some time, maybe just because I was used to playing with like 3 or 4 other people in Dungeon Defenders.
That would
I,
make sense.
I do think that these two games coming out around the same time probably hurt each other,
Hmm.
Oh,
because
yeah.
the the audience was very split. Like it was either your orcs must die or your dungeon defenders. There weren't people that were like, I'll play both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. I put this on the list. Twilight Princess and Okami. They came out like a few months apart. They're both like these action adventure games, with some puzzle solving elements in which you're playing a dog. And I feel like I think Okami got the better reviews, but Twilight Princess was Zelda, so
Yeah.
it stole any thunder that Okami could have got.
Yeah. I've been meaning to play Okami. I just never have gotten around to that,
Same.
unfortunately.
Like, I haven't got around it. Did you include them as well, since neither of the main characters talk? They just grunt?
Sure. I know they eventually re-released Okami on like PS3 and Wii, I think.
Yeah. I remember it coming out, I think, for the Wii.
Yeah. Well, I don't own either of those consoles, so. Well, I had a PS3, but I gave that to my brother when I got the PS4. So.
Mhm. Another couple of games on my list. I have a Deus Ex Human Revolution, and then a few months later, Syndicate came out, which, I mean, it wasn't an RPG like Deus Ex, but it still had the whole cyberpunk theme, and it was still a first-person shooter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like Deus Ex already plant its foot on the ground by then, and this was a few months later. I think like Deus Ex came out like around November, and then Syndicate came out like February the following year. So it was pretty close, but it was by then everyone's already playing Deus Ex. I don't know if people were like, "Oh, I'll try this out." I don't think so, because I don't think anyone played Syndicate.
Yeah, I never got around to playing Syndicate either. But I think also just Deus Ex has such a prominent name, at least in the PC gaming community, because the first Deus Ex, which came out like back in 2000, 2001, I think, that one, like, it's still considered to be one of like the best video games ever made. And so like just that name, just having the Deus Ex name, kind of probably gave it a big boost as well. And
I don't think it was that big of a boost, because I'm pretty sure a lot of people who played. I'll probably say the majority of people who played Deus Ex Human Revolution probably did not even play the first Deus Ex.
Oh, I know, but I'm just saying the people who knew of the original Deus Ex gave a little bit more attention to Human Revolution, and that probably brought it up to light a lot more also, because like whenever Total Biscuit talks about Deus Ex, any of the games, he always mentions the original one as well.
Yeah, and it's his favorite game ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people who are familiar with the original Deus Ex. They've I guess they've had an impact on how Human Revolution may have done, but are just promoting it and marketing it. It's got that very popular name attached to it.
The name probably also attracted a lot of people because they thought it was pronounced Deus Ex.
Yeah.
No, so I did get the new one. And I was telling my dad, I'm like, oh, I got, Deus Ex. And he was like, what the hell is Day of Sex? It was the best. Because I had said it really fast. And he was like, oh, Deus Ex, okay, I know what you're talking about. And I was like, okay. But now I just have to call it Deus Ex for the rest of it.
That's amazing. Okay, so the next couple of games I got on the list, I don't think either of them stole the thunder from each other. They both kind of like flopped in the water. Blur and Split Second. They came out like right at the same time. They're both like these arcadey, over the top racing games. Blur being kind of like a Mario Kart but with actual cars.
Yeah.
Split Second being like this, I guess, kind of like Burnout, except you're blowing up buildings and stuff.
Hmm.
Um, they're both crazy. They're both really cool too, but neither of them were successful.
Yeah.
And I guess it was just a bad time for arcade racers.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think it was successful for about a split second. It's like, well, that's it. That's her fame. I mean, but the thing is, like, a lot of racing games are like that. I mean, when you mentioned the topic, I was thinking, like, immediately Drive Club and The Crew. Like, they came out right around the same time, and were essentially the same game. I think
Yeah,
racing games of any kind kind of just are extremely similar.
I think there's just this phenomenon in the game industry where a specific genre will be extremely popular for a brief moment, and all the games in that genre will come out, and then it just goes back to whatever the default genre is. And I think the default right now is just first-person shooters.
Yeah.
But like you were mentioning with Drive Club, because Drive Club and Project Cars and Assetto Corsa, all of these well, Assetto Corsa and Project Cars are more simulators than Drive Club, but they all kind of were announced, released, or just talked about around the same time. And yeah, I think simulation games kind of have that phenomenon too, because the space simulators have been took like a huge, big boom back in last year ish. But
Yeah, I mean, you got, like, Elite Dangerous and Star Citizen and stuff, which are kind of the same, and,
yep.
like, it just, oh, this is popular, so let's just crank that out. Like,
Yeah, because X Rebirth came out, and then Star Citizen was announced, and then Elite Dangerous was released, and then like there's just a lot of similar games. And then I don't know if you want to consider the announcement of No Man's Sky was around the same time. So I mean, a lot of people were like, it was last like 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago was a great time to be a space sim fan because all these
yeah.
games are being announced, and the space sim genre was kind of dead for a while because Freelancer and Wing Commander were way back a long time ago, and then it just kind of went quiet for a while, and there weren't very many space sims that were around. And then 2 years ago, like all of them were announced. So
Yeah.
some
And it's
did
one of
well, some did not. Some are still being worked on. So
yeah.
guess we'll have to see how things go.
But it is. It's one of those things that you've got that space sim kind of like craze that happened, and now you're right. Like the default is kind of FPS, but you even just
Mhm.
had recently where it was like Battleborn and Overwatch. They're
Yeah.
essentially the same, and everyone jumped on Battleborn, and they were like, "Oh, Battleborn's amazing! Like I'm gonna do this," and then immediately it just all switched. Like they just faded away. They did that Homer into the bushes, and just kind of came back
Yeah.
out as
Well, I think
Overwatch.
Blizzard kind
Yeah.
of has this tendency to release games at the right time for them. Because Battleborn I played the Battleborn beta, and then I played the Overwatch beta, and then I I personally liked Overwatch more even when I played the betas. But then right before Battleborn even had a chance to release, Blizzard was like, "Oh, yep, here's Overwatch. Everyone have fun." And then 10 million people started playing it at the same time, and then
Yeah.
no one started playing no one played Battleborn again because Overwatch was out,
Yeah.
and that kind of took over what they were trying to do with Battleborn, and now Battleborn was announced that it was on Humble Bundle, and they're trying to revive the game, but
They're just
they're
essentially handing it out to people on street corners at this
yeah.
point. Just
It's like, please play our game. Please play it.
Hey kid, you want some Battleborn?
He like opens up his jacket. He's got like boxes of Battleborn.
I got PS4, I got Xbox One.
What are you
You want
buying?
Oh.
Yeah, like I can't believe I
What are
forgot
you
to put
buying?
those two
Not
games on my
Battleborn.
list. But yeah, when Blizzard did the closed beta or closed alpha or whatever it was um for Overwatch, where they just gave it to like popular streamers and that's it.
Mhm.
2K was like, "Hey, you didn't get into Overwatch? Here's our Battleborn alpha." Woo! They're giving it out left and right.
Yeah.
It was like this crazy competition with them, like just throwing the alphas and betas at people, and like by the time, I mean, even though Battleborn came out first, like Overwatch still smashed it because everybody knew like Overwatch was coming out like within a few weeks,
Yeah.
and they both. I mean, they play very differently. I mean, let's
Oh
put that
yeah.
out of the way. They play very differently, but like they both have that same like cartoony look to it, which made them kind of compete with each other just because of the look.
Well,
Um,
I think there's also some similarities other than that. I mean, because there was also this time where, like, with that same phenomenon where a lot of games within a similar genre started being announced. Like, you had Overwatch, you had Battleborn, you had Lawbreakers, and I'm pretty sure there was another one at least that I can't think of. But they all focus on this role-based character, like role-based characters that you
with
pick.
objectives.
Yeah, an
Yeah.
objective gameplay, and it's taking the FPS genre and just adding something to it rather than deathmatch or capture the flag or something. But you actually have objectives and you have extremely unique characters that all have different playstyles and different benefits and
Yeah. So you have to work on
drawbacks.
team comp.
Yeah, and the team comp, and so it's kind of like taking this some semi MOBA feature set and putting it into the FPS genre, and then making this new mix, this new formula. And so a lot of games kind of did that at the same time. And at the moment, Overwatch is the top winner right now.
Yeah.
We'll see how Lawbreakers does, but
I don't think it's gonna do well.
I was watching the closed beta or alpha, whatever footage was around a while back, and it just didn't seem very appealing to me.
It was very glitchy. I got into I think it was the beta, and I played it, and it was very bad. It was very laggy, and there were problems.
I wasn't
Yeah.
And
having
it's
fun
like
with it.
charging batteries. I'm like, I can charge my phone. I don't really
Yeah.
I never pick up my phone or pick up any charging thing that I have to do and be like, you know what? This would be really fun if you made this into a game where you shoot people.
Well, I think there's also just some design flaws. Like instead of having health pickups, there are just health recharging stations, and they completely add an obstacle to the whole flow of the
And
game
they're
because
so
rather
far
than
away from the
yeah,
action.
and like if you have to heal, you just run to one and you stand there for a few seconds,
And that's
and
just not that fun. Like,
yeah. And then like I was saying, it just completely breaks the flow because in Overwatch you run to a health pack and you're still moving, you're not stopping for it. You run and you're still in the action while you're working on your healing. And then with Lawbreakers, you're just waiting there for a few seconds, and then if someone tries to come around and shoot you because you're standing inside the health regenerator, you always win regardless of
yeah.
what other person has in terms of their weapons. So it breaks the flow. It doesn't. I think they were talking. There were some recommendations that they should change that to health pickups, and I don't know if they are going to do that or not. But at the way it is, and like the limited number of characters, and how they're different, but they're not different enough, I think. Because like with Overwatch, I know I keep going to the Overwatch as a prime example, but like there are certain characters that just will not win against other characters, but it's
Yeah.
not about character versus character. It's about what characters are right in the situation that you're in. And Lawbreakers doesn't seem to have that emphasis. It seems to just be like, okay, you have your character and they have uh, their own strengths, but who can get their shots off first and who can hit at the right place at the right time, rather than do you want to just completely avoid that person and try to find a way back to the objective, or do you want to switch characters? It seems like the whole formula is not nearly as fluid as Overwatch is.
Definitely.
But,
Just from that one example where you basically have to stand in a health zone.
Yeah.
It's honestly,
Yeah.
that's like, I mean, it's closer to my actual life. Like, if I was one of those characters, if I would be like, whoa, guys, I gotta go take a break. I gotta go take a fiver over here. Like,
Yeah.
see you in a minute. But yeah, no. Plus, I just love Overwatch, so.
So like, Battleborn wasn't really a bad game. What if like Battleborn came out like a year or like 6 months before Overwatch did? Do you think that would have like got a little bit more success?
I
Yeah.
think it absolutely would have gotten more success, and also just because of it's got the Borderlands humor and just the similar style to Borderlands, and Borderlands is an extremely popular series, and I think that alone would have helped Battleborn do well.
Just competing up against Overwatch was a problem.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of dead, and it's hard to revive something like that because you have to have a lot of people playing it,
Yeah.
and
It
a lot
had
of your
some-
friends playing it.
I mean,
Yeah.
they're competing against Blizzard, who like they have like a total of like what 5 games. Well,
Mhm.
before that it was like 4 games. So and everybody loves Blizzard,
It's
especially PC players. So the
Yeah.
fact that they're competing against a Blizzard game, that was it was a losing battle.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
kind of sad because Battleborn actually even had more than just the multiplayer matches. Like it had cooperative campaigns that you could go through, and
Mhm.
I did one of those, and it was actually kind of fun. It was, I mean, it wasn't extremely story heavy. It was more just like Left 4 Dead style, where you're going from point A to point B, and then you get attacked by waves of enemies every once in a while, or there's like certain objectives that you have to complete. I'd say it's basically very much like Left 4 Dead in terms of its gameplay, but instead of zombies, you're fighting like the other creatures and monsters in this Battleborn universe, but cooperatively with other people. And then there was like a big boss fight at the end. And so I mean, it was enjoyable. It was fun content. It was something different than always getting into a multiplayer match, but yeah, it just didn't have a chance against Blizzard's games.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, like, Blizzard doesn't even have to worry about the campaign. They're just like, oh, here's the game. You're just gonna do
Yeah.
the same thing over, and then occasionally I'm gonna release an animated short that punches you in your heart.
Yeah.
And
And I think
like,
the price also had something to do with it because even though it had the single player or the campaign content, it's still a very multiplayer focused game, and
yeah,
it seems like that would be the only thing that people would consider. And with Overwatch being multiplayer and coming out for $40 on PC at least, but Battleborn was still wanting 60. A lot
Yeah.
of people kind of overlooked the campaign or just the additional content that it had, and
Yeah.
said, "Oh well, if Overwatch is being priced at $40, Battleborn should be too, so it's overpriced, and I'm not going to buy it."
Yeah, I remember talking to a few people before Battleborn came out, and when I told them that it's a full price game, they're like, "What? This isn't a free to play game? This is it's gonna it's gonna fail on release."
Yeah,
man.
I would it have done better if it was free to play? I'm pretty sure it would have had more players, but I don't know if it would have lasted very long. I guess it would just depend on how they handle their microtransactions.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
But-
kind of crazy that Overwatch is the game that has the microtransactions and you have to pay to play it.
Yeah, well, the microtransactions are kind of minimal because
Yeah, since they're mostly skins and stuff, you don't have to play to win. Like,
yeah, and you can't really buy. Well, I mean, you
Well,
can buy
that's
specific
the ideal
skins,
way to
but
have a free to play. You have microtransactions that don't affect the gameplay.
yeah. Well, I agree, and I think there's just something different about that because it's not the skins and the things aren't nearly as robust as they could be. They're kind of minor, a lot of them. I mean, they're just like a small, slight color change, unless you like.
Yeah.
There's really only 3 different skins per character, and they just have different color scheme variations of each of those skins.
yeah, you have like 2 legendaries, and then those legendaries have 2 variations, but even those are minimal. Like,
Yeah,
it's like Red Devil Mercy or this. Like,
yeah. So I think this. I mean, if they did more with the skins, that would be cool because I think there's a lot to be said for people wanting to have their customization. But at the same time, I will make the argument that the game is very heavily focused on character comp, and like I was mentioning earlier, some characters just don't do well against other characters, and being able to know what you're up against is very important in that game. Because
Yeah.
if you're like a tracer, and if you actually a better example would probably be like Lucio versus Reinhardt. Like if you're a Lucio and you're running around and you see Reinhardt, you're not gonna go up to him. You're
I
gonna
do all the time, dude.
I mean, unless he's at the edge and you use your little blasting to push him off.
I'm
you're
like,
not
come
gonna...
at me, bro. And then he goes, "Ah," and then I'm like right next to that hole, and I'm like, this is Sparta.
Yeah. But I mean, like, there are just certain characters that you don't go against if you're a specific character. And being able to be situationally aware of what those characters are is very important. So if they went radically different with the character skins, it probably would hurt some players just not immediately knowing which character that is until you like see what their attacks are, and it might be too late at
Yeah.
that point.
You gotta
So
be
they have...
aware of what you're fighting against.
Yeah, and
You
so they
can't
have
just
to be very careful with their skin designs because they have to make sure that you can still tell what character that is from a distance before you engage and realize, oops, wrong character, I shouldn't be fighting this one, and then you die and you miss, whatever objective you could have gotten. So I think that also, just because of the focus on the character versus character situations, that they kind of have to be very more strict on how the skins are designed.
Plus, who would want to get rid of Zenyatta's MC Hammer pants? Like, that would be wasteful.
Exactly. That's a crime.
It is.
Okay, so last couple games I have on this list. Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, which comes out late October this year. Sorry, Titanfall 2, which comes out late October, and then the next month in November, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, which both look very similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Futuristic games, space, whatever. I mean, there's more space in Call of Duty and more mechs in Titanfall, but either way, they both look very similar, and they're coming out like right at the same time.
Yeah, and they really focus on the vertical gameplay with jetpacks and being able to wall run and climb up walls, and it's very vertical and agile movement, and that's like the big defining factor of these games.
Yep, and obviously Call of Duty Infinite Warfare is going to be the better of the two. I mean,
it's going to sell better just
It's
because
gonna-
it has
yeah.
Call of Duty in the name.
And I mean, Titanfall is only going to be for like Xbox and PC, so it's one of those things where you're going to have a limited amount of people who can get one. Whereas Call of Duty, everybody's going to be like, it's Call of Duty, here's my money.
Yeah.
I'm going to play Titanfall.
I mean, I'm definitely like, if I had to pick one of these two, definitely Titanfall.
Titanfall 2 is so smooth. Like the gameplay has been really neat.
I'm going to get both.
Yeah, you are.
Proud of you.
Yeah.
Play all the game.
Yeah.
Don't play favorites. Love them
Exactly.
all equally.
Yeah.
But you know what I love even more than all those games? And it's
well,
like,
before we move on, actually, I kind of wanted to mention one last thing.
no.
We don't care about your love, Alpha. Alright?
No.
We don't need your love profession.
Come on now. Come on, Kevin.
Actually, two more things. On the topic of Call of Duty, actually, the military shooters have also been very concurrent releases. Back when Battlefield 1942 came out and their first Call of Duty, those were a few months apart, but they were both World War II shooters. I think Medal of Honor was the first one because that came out a couple years before.
Well, that was more following a trend rather than two games coming out like at the same time that are very similar. Like because Medal of Honor, the people who made Medal of Honor moved on to make Call of Duty.
Yeah.
So it was more of a trend rather than like the whole Armageddon / Deep Impact. Two things coming out at the same time that are basically the same thing.
Yeah. Well, then I guess if it's a trend, then the other example that I had would also fall under trends because you've got a whole bunch of these Minecraft clones and DayZ clones that have been trying to compete with each other, similar to how a lot of MMOs are coming out to become the next WoW killer. You had DayZ, you had like Rust, you had 7 Days to Die, and a lot of these games, or Project Zomboid, a lot of them have a similar premise. But Project Zomboid didn't really. But like a lot of them had multiplayer zombie, like post-apocalypse, and you're trying to survive against other players and the zombies, and they kind of are trying to compete with each other.
Yeah,
And
I think those are more like developers trying to follow a trend rather
mm,
than like like with Infamous and Prototype. It's like, oh, it's just a coincidence these two games are very similar.
Came out at the
I don't
same
think
time,
either
yeah.
of them were trying to copy each other.
yeah.
It was more of a coincidence.
All right. Well, that's all I had then.
Yeah, but
So what was it that you love, Staffa?
yes, it is DreamHost. Thanks for crushing my segue, Kevin.
Sorry for crushing your dreams.
Yeah. Now who's gonna host my dreams, Kevin?
Not GoDaddy.
Dreamhouse?
It better be DreamHost because they offer unlimited storage, unlimited bandwidth, user-friendly interface. They also optimize to use content managers such as WordPress. What? You say WordPress? Yes, I did. WordPress. And many more features. All that just for $7.95 a month. What? That's cheaper than Netflix. Netflix gets more expensive. DreamHost gets cheaper.
But does Dreamhost have Stranger Things?
You can make a website about Stranger Things.
Done.
Stranger
All
Things
that
fan
font.
page.
Yes. And it gets better. If you use the promo code out of continues, that's one word, no spaces, it'll waive away the setup fee and enter a free domain registration. Bam! That's amazing.
That is amazing.
One quick announcement I got. If you use iTunes, please leave an iTunes review. It's leaving an iTunes review is one of the single most helpful things you can do for the podcast because when you leave an iTunes review, it helps us get onto the Apple iTunes charts, and that helps us get more listeners. It helps expand the podcast. So, yeah, please do so. If you're unable to leave an iTunes review for whatever reason, but you still want to help out the podcast, you can do so by sharing the podcast on social media such as Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Reddit, whatever you want to do. Tell a friend. If you don't like us, tell an enemy. And yeah, it just makes the podcast more fun when more people are listening and interacting with us. So please do so. So let's go on to the news. Boom! We're doing the news, and here's the screen share. And let me make this a full screen. There we go. All right. So Clay Entertainment, one of our favorite indie Canadian developers who have made all sorts of amazing games such as Don't Starve, such as Mark of the Ninja, such as
Invisible Ink.
Incognita.
Yeah, I wish they kept the name Incognita. So much better than Invisible Ink.
Invisible Ink, Shank, Eats, all these amazing games, and now they're making a game called Hot Lava, which is it looks like it takes place in multiple like indoor environments, but then later like straight up in a volcano. But it basically takes the whole concept of, oh, don't step on the floor because it's lava. The game that kids play, and like
Game that kids play. I still play it. Like, that's weird. Like, I'm excited about this.
Kids and Jess.
Like, if you're in a parking garage with me, at some point the floor is gonna be lava. Just.
So yeah, like in this game, Hot Lava, the floor is literally lava, and you're parkouring through these like office buildings or school classrooms or whatever, and then like in the trailer, it's just straight up inside a volcano, but you're doing parkour and swinging around and trying not to hit the floor because it's lava. And it also looks like it has like some kind of like an action hero, like an action figure theme to it, because the character models, they look like their arms are attached like action figures are.
Hmm.
So I think it's going with this whole like I don't know like this action figure like GI Joe type theme with it. So my guess is you're probably playing as like action figures that are being played by a kid, and that's why the floor is lava. That's my
It's,
guess.
it's exciting. It
That
could
makes
just be Dante's Peak, the game. I mean, Pierce Brosnan does kind of look like an action figure, so
I think it looks pretty cool. It looks very different from Clay's previous. Well, Clay makes a completely different game every single time, which
Yeah.
I think that's really awesome with them. But this is probably the most different because it. I mean, Invisible Ink wasn't 2D. It was 3D that tried to look 2D. But this one straight up doesn't even try to look 2D at all. It's a 3D game. It's a first person game, which Clay hasn't even done anything in first person yet, as far as I recall. And
Yeah.
so it's a very different game, but it still looks pretty cool. I'm excited for it.
I'm really excited for it. It's like hot lava. Like the floor is lava is the original hardcore parkour. Like that's
Yeah.
how you learn as a child to like be able to play Assassin's Creed later. Like I got this. I don't even need hey, I just gotta imagine everything. I'm gonna be MLG at this. Magma League Gaming.
Nice.
Whoa. All right, moving on.
Yes.
Speaking of games that come out around the same time, coincidentally having the same concept.
when when did lava become such a hot topic?
Oh.
I'm so sorry.
Minecraft's new competitive mode wants you to push your friends into lava. This like was announced like at the same time as Hot Lava from Clay. It was a little after, but either way, like what's up with these lava games coming out? So Minecraft it wants to add a competitive mode. Sounds like it's gonna be like sumo driven, where you're pushing
Yeah.
each other and you're pushing each other into lava. Don't step on the lava. What's up with this? Are they copying off of Hot Lava? Is that what's it? They saw the announcement. They're like, okay, let's do this too. We already have lava in our games. Let's just like push people into them now.
Is that character on the right? Is her hair made of lava? It looks like she's already lost.
Hey, don't hate on redheads.
I'm not. I was one for a long time.
Then I became
But-
normal.
Aww. Like I need to I don't know. I think Minecraft is kind of losing a lot of its adult audience. So I feel like it's trying to come up with new modes every couple months to try and get people back into it. Like it's a very kid-driven game at the moment.
Well, I mean, it's also been around for a while now.
Yes.
You know,
Since the dawn of time.
like how long has Minecraft been out? Like it was even playable for quite a long time before it was officially released.
Yeah, I remember
So-
playing the alpha like I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, or the
Yeah.
beta. Like it was a long time ago. But what was this gonna say? Oh yeah, this looks like it's limited to the console version of Minecraft, and I'm wondering if they're adding. See, one of the things that keeps the PC Minecraft community alive is the mods, and that's something that the consoles just don't have at all. So like it seems like they're trying to add content for the consoles so that they're not limited to just the creative or survival modes.
Yeah.
Just adding more variety to the game. But because there are some really extensive mods for Minecraft on PC, some that just completely change how like the progression of the game goes. I mean, you could go into things like building power plants and actually like programming specific functions for things, and it can get incredibly insane on how deep these mods can go. So there's a lot of variety of gameplay in those, but like I was saying, the consoles don't really have the modding capabilities for Minecraft, so it doesn't surprise me that they're trying to add content for that. Plus now Microsoft owns Minecraft, so they're gonna do whatever they can to make sure that their investment was worth it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Gotta make that Minecraft money.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on. Let's talk about this War of Mine developer. What was their 11-bit
11-bit?
Studios. Yes, 11-bit Studios. They're working on a new game called Frostpunk. And basically, they're going with a similar theme with this game. Like management within a bad situation, and it's from the trailer. It looks like you're like stuck in the mountains, freezing and dying. Uh, I'm gonna assume that you can probably get to the point in this game where you're like managing your dudes that are stuck in the mountains, and then you have to like be like, okay, you're gonna eat this dude, and straight up go Donner Party
Yeah.
on each other.
Hopefully it's not multiplayer. These are fun. 6v6 cannibalism.
Yep. So yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on this. There's not really much to go off of with the trailer. What
The
do you guys think?
trailer's just a frosty dude. I watched the trailer and I was thinking, like, I have no heat in the house in the winter, so it's one of those things where I'm just like, this is just my life. Like, did they make a game about me? Like, but then I was like, no, because he's not wearing a Darth Vader onesie, like, in 5 blankets.
Oh, so your life is better than the game. All right.
It's exactly. Like, I was kind of just like, nana boo boo guy.
Exactly. I mean, that's why he froze to death. He didn't have that onesie.
Yeah, I'm wondering where the punk comes in. Are they just really cold and a hot topic? Like, what?
It says in the second paragraph that they're like, do they eventually develop steam
Oh,
power?
steampunk. I get it.
Yeah, to withstand the issues with being in the cold world, frozen
So
world.
everybody's gonna be wearing goggles. Got it.
Yeah, it'll become instantly Victorian.
They're gonna have top hats with cogs.
Hell yeah.
Yep, that's the definition of steampunk. All right, moving on.
Sure.
All right, let's talk about the Windows Store real quick. You can now pre-order Windows 10 games from there, and that even includes Xbox Play Anywhere titles. So, that includes games like Forza Horizon 3, ReCore, and Gears of War 4. So, they're definitely trying to, get more people to use that Windows Store, but it's the Windows Store.
Yeah.
We've seen this happen time and time again. It's hard to compete with Steam at this point. Even though Steam is definitely not perfect. Steam has issues. I will be the first in line to say Steam has issues. Lots of
I'll
issues.
be right behind you.
But you just can't compete with Steam. I mean, Origin, Uplay, Humble Store.
Yeah. Well, I
GOG.
think I wonder if part of the issue is it's not just that they're trying to compete with Steam, it's also just the fact that they're trying to integrate this with their whole Xbox ecosystem.
Yeah.
And like, they want to do the whole play anywhere where you buy a game once and then you have it on Xbox and on PC. Where like Steam does something similar where you buy the game once and you can have it for Mac, Windows, and Linux if it has all those versions available. But this is bringing it into the console realm, and so I don't know. I know that Steam at one point in the past did work with Sony to get Portal 2 working that way, where if you bought Portal 2 on the, I think it was on PS3, then you could
Yeah, it
have
was.
it, and then you could have it on PC as well for free. But then you could also do like cross-platform multiplayer, I think, or cooperative, yeah. But this time around, like the Xbox and Windows, because Microsoft owns both of those platforms essentially, they're trying to make it more seamless just for the Xbox and Windows to work together. And I don't know if that's something that Steam would really be willing to do. or if they want to take the time to make that integration at all. So they kind of have to go with their own Windows Store for this,
Mhm.
just because of the logistics of making compatibility between Xbox and PC. But I mean, as long as they don't mess it up like they did games for Windows Live, then everything is fine. I do not mind.
It is impossible to mess it up games for Windows Live. That is that's an
You set a pretty high
abomination.
bar. Like,
You have to try to get worse than that. You have to like go out of your way to try to make something worse than that. But yeah, like these games, Recore, Forza Horizon 3, Gears of War 4, they're gonna be like only available on Windows Store for like the first 6 months, and then similar to what's that game? Not Alan Wake. The new one that's by them, by Remedy.
a Quantum Break.
Yeah, Quantum Break.
Yeah.
That's coming out on Steam. It's similar to that. Those games these games will probably show up on Steam like 6 months later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens, but
All right, moving on.
yep.
So last week I talked about some Duke Nukem. Ends up like there was something Duke Nukem gonna be announced, but it wasn't that rumor, which was like a remake of Duke Nukem 3D. This, I mean, it's kind of a remake of Duke Nukem 3D. It's in widescreen and widescreen resolution, and there's also gonna be 8 new levels that are designed by the original level designer of Duke Nukem 3D, but it's pretty much just Duke Nukem 3D to PS4, Xbox One, PC, and come on now. Like I was watching the trailer and it's like, oh, presidential election, Duke Nukem, vote for him, and I'm like, Duke Nukem would be as bad of a presidential candidate as as our current main two. He like maybe if I was a 13-year-old staffer, I'd be like, yeah, Duke Nukem. But no, no, Duke Nukem is just as bad.
Are you sure? I feel like maybe he's equal to Trump. Like,
I don't know. It's just like, what does Duke Nukem have to do with like presidential election? Like, why are they going with that whole theme? It doesn't make sense to me.
so I do like this idea that the presidential election has a mature rating. Like,
Yeah.
So, ew, I don't want any partial nudity. Never mind. Let's not have that in the presidential election, please.
But yeah, like I don't know who this is appealing to. The way how they're announcing this it's as if people want this and they're excited for it. Who's excited for this? No one is. Like the whole Duke Nukem hype bubble has popped a long time ago, and it's gone to a worse place. I don't know. You guys have
No.
anything to add to this?
Not really.
Not really. I'm not really that much of a Duke Nukem fan, and the fact that they think that like there are people waiting with bated breath for the 20th anniversary edition. Plus, the fact they added World Tour at the end of it, I was just like, this sounds like it's like Spice Girls. When they kind of came back and they thought they were still really popular, and they were decently popular. There will be people who buy the game, but it's not quite as like hype.
Yeah, we're not waiting for a new Duke Nukem. It makes them seem out of touch that they think we've been waiting for this all this time. Finally we get to revisit the amazing classic called Duke Nukem with 8 new levels. Oh my god, this is what it needed all this time. 8 new levels. No, goodbye. Let's get going. Let's talk about Kevin over here. I mean, CD Projekt Red.
Yay, my favorite company.
So CD Projekt Red, they're now worth $1 billion.
I was actually not too long ago looking at a picture that I found on a Reddit. Let me see if I can find this again. But basically, like it shows the beginning of CD Projekt Red before they even released Witcher One,
Hmm.
and like just their E3 booth. What it was basically like a table and a chair and a computer inside a dorm. They were sharing space with someone else because they didn't have the money or the recognition to really have their own space. And it was literally just one chair, a small round table, and like a tiny monitor for their computer.
Sounds like they needed the money.
Yeah, and it's just amazing to see where they are now after all these years. And like, I strongly believe that there are very few games that actually significantly get better with each release. Usually, there's a lot of games or even movies where, like, the first is really liked, and then the second one is usually like the sequels are usually not nearly as good as the first, and then it just kind of goes downhill. But with the Witcher series, like each game is just absolutely better than the previous, and they've done just such a good job being a company. Like they actually care about their customers and their consumers. They're not always out for like the most profit.
Well, it's not just The Witcher. I mean, they also have GOG.com.
Yeah, and that has been really getting popular too. And so I just the things that CD Projekt Red stands for, I'm a huge fan of, and the Witcher games are among my favorite games of all time, and actually Witcher 3 is my favorite game of all time.
Can we still say that CD Projekt Red is an indie company?
Yes, they are absolutely an indie company because
Just like how Valve is still an indie company.
yeah, and that's the thing. Like there's this stigma around indie, which means low budget, but that doesn't at all. It's like the AAA, like the lettering system is what determines the budget. But there's always like AAA versus indie, but you can be a AAA indie company, and that's what CD Projekt Red is now after the second game.
I mean,
Like, are they going to be making anything other than Witcher games, or are they just going to
Yep,
constantly
they
crank
are
out?
now done with The Witcher,
Cyberpunk?
and they're making a new one called Cyberpunk 2077. They teased
Oh,
it like
yes.
2 years ago.
Okay, yeah.
Um,
2? No, it was
It
more
was a
than
long
2.
time ago.
Oh, yeah, that was
I
long more-
remember
yeah, it was
that.
I
like-
was I was still in school when they
yeah, it was a while back.
announced.
Yeah, it was like 3 or 4 years. But now that they've finished the final expansion for Witcher 3, they're going full force on Cyberpunk 2077. So hopefully we see something about that. Like, just, I mean, they gave a teaser for it, and I kind of want to see some more world environment aspects of it. But obviously, I don't want them to, and I don't think they're going to rush anything. So I have full faith in them. But I'm excited for it because we talked about this on previous episodes, but like Staffa and I both really like the cyberpunk genre. It's our favorite, and I really like what they've done with the Witcher games. And so just from what they've said, Cyberpunk is basically going to be The Witcher in terms of its gameplay and mechanics, but it will be in cyberpunk settings. So
And with vehicles.
yeah, and so that's, I mean, with which like I've always been more sci-fi over fantasy, but just because of how good the Witcher games are, Witcher 3 is my favorite. But I'm just super excited for their next game.
All right, let's get rolling.
Alright.
So, who added this to the notes?
I did.
Alright.
Yeah. So this one actually was announced just yesterday. Basically, I think it was just yesterday, but the Ark Survival Evolved, which is an early access game on Steam, now has DLC, which costs $20. And this is
beautiful.
And this is really throwing a lot of people off the game because the game is still early access. It's not even finished yet, and they've already released expansion content for this game. Basically, they said, yeah, we're not even finished with our game, but here's something else you can buy that's completely separate.
Yeah.
Rather than like adding this as a patch to the game that they're still finishing, they've said that, like, here's something else that you could buy on top of our unfinished game.
So how can a game not be finished but yet get expansions? That makes no sense to me. Like once you start adding
Well,
expansions, the part of the game that before the expansion, that should be it. That should be done. You can't be like, oh, there's gonna be more to the game and here's an expansion. No,
Making an
get out of my
episodic game
face.
without episodes. Like, here. You're like, here, here's the first 5 feet, and then you can pay for the next 5 feet.
Man,
yeah. So I don't know. Like, this is a really bad policy for, well, not really a policy, but this is just a really bad method of game development. You're basically asking the player base to help fund your game through the early access program, and then you release extra content that wasn't even planned, and you say, here, buy this, spend us more money.
I think Valve should not allow the ability to add DLC
Yeah, and that's
on
actually
your store page if the store page is also in early access.
yeah, and that's
Yeah.
actually exactly the arguments that people have been making on Reddit and the comments on this post, and everywhere that this discussion is happening. And hopefully Valve sees this and changes the Steam policies so that if your game is early access, you can't release any DLC. I mean, there are other things in here that were technically DLC, but they're like free, and I think I don't remember exactly what they were, but if it's things like texture packs, or a high resolution texture pack, or something that doesn't really add content to the game, but it's just more it helps refine the game itself, then I think that's fine, because I mean, Skyrim did that where you could, if you had a powerful enough PC, you could download the high resolution textures just to take advantage of the extra power that your computer has and have just a nicer looking game. But if they're going to start adding content that you have to pay for and the game isn't even released yet, I don't. Yeah, Steam should definitely not allow that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They should either not allow it, or like the moment they add DLC to the store page, it should, paid DLC to the store page, it should like kick the game out of early access, like remove that early access tag.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
you've got a finished game that has DLC. Like,
Yeah, and then there's.
So-
Oh, go ahead.
their early access policies are pretty awful. I mean, you can put anything up there and just say it's early access. Like,
Yeah. They don't vet the games as much anymore as they used to, and I think part of that is just because game development in general has gone up. I mean, it's become a lot easier to get into game development, and because there's things like the tools are more accessible. You've got all these engines which are free to use, and people are wanting to make games, but there's just no way to vet the games when they come in at that quantity. And I mean, I understand it's difficult, but this is something that they could easily fix. And this, if your game is still labeled as an early access game, then you should just not be able to add any DLC content.
Yeah.
But then there's also another discussion that I stumbled upon. Basically, like, some people were saying that they're fine with day one DLC, but they're not fine with DLC coming out on early access. And it's kind of difficult to make that argument, or to stand by that argument, because one of the reasons that actually no, they weren't saying that they were fine with day one DLC. They were saying that this is just as bad as day one DLC. And I think it's a little bit different depending on what your development situation is. So like big AAA studios, they have to go through a process where they develop their game, they have to then get the game approved, and then once it's approved, then the game goes gold. And then they start the distribution process. So they have to start, printing all the discs. They have to send all the files to the digital distribution services, and then they have to wait for release. So there's still, when a game is finished, it's not like finished the day before or the week before it's actually released. It's actually finished months before it's released. Not that long, but it's at least a month or two, maybe more, just so that they have that approval time, the printing time, and the distribution time. So there's still a lot of downtime between going gold and, finishing the game and release. And so AAA studios will take advantage of that time and will start developing extra content. So if there is a day one patch or day one DLC for AAA studios, it's because they are literally doing nothing for the last 2 months or so. But when
Plus they have teams within the studio that are sitting around and doing nothing.
Yeah.
So they are working on something else. Rather than them just sitting around doing nothing, they're working on the new DLC while the rest of the team is working on the main project or whatever.
Exactly, because as the development team is working, the design team might have most of their work done because the game has already been designed and it's in the development stage, and so they're starting to plan for the expansions or even the next game. So there's always a staggered development with those larger AAA studios. But when you have smaller studios that are not distributing games physically, they're distributing it through digital means. They're pretty much working up until release. So they don't have much downtime between end of development and release, because as soon as they're done developing, they'll make their final approvals and then just release it. And so,
like if you're working on a DLC pack for
exactly.
a big AAA title, you're working until the moment that it releases.
Yeah, and so this company basically was taking away time from development of the base game, which people had invested in. Basically, they're funding the project to finish this game, and there is a set schedule for when specific things are intended to come out, and the player base who is funding this, was told a specific thing. Then, if this company is taking this time to work on content that was not even promised to the players originally, to the funders originally, then that's morally wrong, because you're taking time that you were paid. Basically, you're paid that time to do specific work, but you're working on something else that you're going to charge extra for.
Mm-hmm.
When the players have already paid for, they've already funded you for a specific goal, but you're not even working on that goal, and you're working on extra. It's kind of like a similar idea to you have a job and you're working, but you're doing other work. The company would see that as stealing money from them, because you're working on something else and using company time to work on other paid content, basically. That's
survival evolved.
Yep.
Yeah.
Taking it to that next level.
Yeah. So right, a lot of people see this as, it's morally wrong because the company is stealing money from these funders essentially to work on extra content, which they're going to sell separately, and so measures need to be taken on Steam's end to prevent this from happening with early access titles.
Yep. All right, let's move on. Something a little less video game related. Let's talk about some comics for a bit. Some comic movies. So Ben Affleck, who is playing and directing the Batman solo movie.
One man show.
Yep.
One Batman show.
Yep. Bat Affleck. And it's been revealed as to who's going to be the villain of the movie, and looks like it's going to be Deathstroke.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty happy.
Me too.
I think Deathstroke is one of the best villains that DC has that they don't use enough. They've been using him more, with Arrow and Injustice and Batman Arkham Origins. They've been using him a little bit more recently.
And Arkham Knight too. He was in
I haven't played
Batman game.
Okay, and Teen Titans. But yeah, Like I mean, okay, don't get me wrong. I think Joker is, one of the best villains that Batman has, but he's just overused.
Yeah, he does
Like
get used a lot.
like Batman has one of the best rogues gallery. Like he's got so many amazing villains that don't get used because they just keep reusing Joker. And I get, it's they just, like I said, I don't dislike Joker as a character, but they are just using him too much, and they need to use more of the other villains. And I'm glad that, rather than, shoehorning Joker in again, that they're gonna use Deathstroke instead.
They probably also thought they would have to use Jared Leto, so they're just like, no, anything else.
Man,
Let's hit those comics.
Jared Leto has been like throwing the studio under the bus with Suicide Squad. He's just like left and right saying, how he's been saying stuff like they tricked him into thinking that his role is going to be something different, and that they cut out like half of the scenes with him and this and that.
Yeah,
He's just throwing them under the bus left and right.
I think when they started doing all of the reshooting because of Deadpool, I think that kind of hurt the movie a lot. But I haven't seen it yet, so I'm not sure if that was like the main issue with the movie. But
It's not really, like, it's okay. Like, it's not as terrible as I anticipated. Like, I wouldn't watch it again.
yeah,
But I went and I saw it. I was like, yeah, this isn't that terrible. But yeah, no, he is really awful in it.
Oh,
He's
really?
Probably, I don't know. He probably has like 15 minutes in it, and originally it made it seem like he was going to be a major part of the movie, which he's not.
Yeah, the way how they
Which is
marketed
good.
it made it seem like he was going to be the main big bad.
Yeah, but they put him like 30 seconds from having a tantrum. Like, he was just insanely like upset about it.
But yeah, Deathstroke. I'm pretty hyped about this. Well, other than the fact that it's going to be a DC movie, so it's going to be bad. But
No.
Deathstroke's cool. Let's see. Is there any PAX news that came out today that we're missing? Cosplay, of course, that's the thing that happened. Indie games, of course. That's when you're talking to PAX. There's always indie games, of course.
Serial Cleaner looks fun. I did watch the trailer for that. It came out, I think, today or yesterday.
Serial Cleaner. Which one was
You know,
that?
like, you're basically the person that gets called after a serial killer.
Oh.
Cleaning up the bodies. So you go and you clean up the bodies, and it's kind of like Party Hard and like that kind of top-down look.
Huh.
But you essentially clean up everything, and you're trying not to get caught by the police.
So it's like the dude in Pulp Fiction that came in to clean up the
Yeah,
mess.
you're essentially Harvey Keitel's character. Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. All right, let's stop screen sharing. Let's wrap up this. Hello. Oh. PAX 13.
Oh yeah.
Yep. So we have no listener feedback this week. But if you want to leave some listener feedback, you can write into the podcast. That's podcast@outofcontinues.com. That's the email address. Send us an email with your feedback, your questions, anything you want to say. I'll read it. I'll be like, what's up? Feedback. So let's wrap this up. Shout outs. Jess.
Oh, hey, yes. If you want, you may watch me on Twitch.
Oh, you're wearing a Phoenix shirt. That's cool.
Just playing. Oh yeah. And that's what I do. I do things on Twitch.
All right. I've been doing a little bit more Twitch streaming lately. That's twitch.tv/SayItSafa. You'll see me doing the Overwatch or Hearthstone, or maybe I'll try doing something else. That's SAYEDSTFA. I have not been putting up any gameplay on YouTube lately, but I need to continue that Undertale Let's Play. So
you don't seem too excited about that.
I don't like the word Let's Play.
Whose tail?
I like Undertale. I need to get through it. It's just I don't like the word Let's Play. Oh, that hurts.
Because it's just you playing. It's
Oh,
not. Nobody else is involved in
It's
this.
not a let's play, it's watch me play.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a dumb term. Let's play. No, it's called gameplay commentary. There you go. All right. If you enjoy what you've been hearing, you can support us by liking us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, leave an iTunes review. You can subscribe to the Google Play Music. You can contact us by email at podcast@aftercontinues.com. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/aftercontinues. All those things I just said, they can be found on the website. That's www.aftercontinues.com. You can give me a tweet. I am at SayedStafa. That's at SayedStafa. You can also tweet at Kevin over here.
I am at KS Trehan, that's KSTREHAN.
You can tweet at Jess over here.
At the Just Playin, so it's at the JESSPLAYIN.
I'd like to thank my guest host for joining me today and waiting 30 minutes for me.
You're welcome.
No problem.
Kevin and Jess. Why do I have a capital E there? There we go. Kevin and Jess, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And with that said, I'm your host, Stafa. I'll see you guys next week.